so much for being part of our Love Thy Neighbor live stream. It's been a little while since we've done one, and I'm excited to be able to circle back and have a new panel with me today. Today we're going to focus on the Colombian ethnicity, and that's where my first learning happened already. So this whole live stream is about learning about just how to apply cultural humility by asking questions and appreciating and learning about our differences in our ethnicities. And just even within the panel, we might have different opinions, and that is totally fine. And that's exactly what highlights that we all have our own culture. All right. So I'd like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. So maybe I'll just call on you each individually to introduce yourselves, maybe give us a little bit of your background. So Sandra, how about we start with you?
Yeah, so my name is Sandra Bowlers. I live in Los Angeles, California, and my mother is Colombian. She's from San Gil, which is a really small town in the province of Santander. Not very common when I explain that this is where my family comes from. Many times I have to explain that it's near Bucaramanga. Bucaramanga is a little more popular. It's a little bit of a more known province of Colombia. So I've been to Santander. It's a beautiful place, very small, very quaint. Has a park that's very famous called El Gallineral. And it has trees that kind of fall, and that's what it's known for. I'm a social worker. I work in the healthcare field. I have worked in the transplant world for many years. I'm currently working for a healthcare company, LA Care, so still kind of in the medical field, just a little bit of a different aspect of it. So I'm very happy to be here and on this panel.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and thank you for being here. Yeah. And Sandro, how about we hear from you?
Yes, first and foremost, Haiti, thank you for having me on your live stream. I really appreciate the invitation. So I know one person from the panel, which is Alejandra Alzate. We work together at the University of Miami Life Alliance Organ Donation Center. A little bit about me. My family's from Colombia. I've lived all of my life in Miami, but just a year ago, I moved here to Texas, and I'm an organ placement specialist for Life Gift. I left Miami, brought my talents here to Texas, and, looking forward to continue pushing forward the mission, which is organ donation and transplantation, saving lives. So thank you, Haiti, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sandro, for joining us and representing Colombia already with your soccer.
And it's Colombia, not Colombia. For all of our viewers.
That was my first learning. I emailed Dr. Caicedo and I said, would you be willing to be part of a panel on the ethnicity of Colombia? And I spelled it with a U. And quite frankly, I shamedly admit, even though I'm a detailed organ person, I never paid attention to that detail. And he emailed me back and said, I can speak about Colombia. So first learning it's spelled with 2 O's, right?
Right.
Excellent. Thank you. And that t-shirt will help to cement that.
Cement it, right.
Excellent. So Dr. Caicedo, how about you?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Hidi, for inviting me. It's
thank you.
Great pleasure to be with all of you. My name is Juan Carlos Caicedo. I'm from Colombia too, from the capital city, Bogota. I grew up in a small area in the east where all the farms, we have a lot of ranch in that area, but my family is from the coffee area in the middle of the country. I'm an adult and pediatric transplant surgeon in Northwestern Medicine, Northwestern Memorial Hospital and Lori Children's. I'm living in Chicago now. Then maybe because we are here talking about Colombian and Hispanics, probably it's important to mention we developed here in Northwestern the first Hispanic transplant program in the nation.
Wow.
Now we're teaching other centers across the country to develop this type of culturally competent and congruent programs that has demonstrated how we can increase organ donation and transplantation in this community if we personalize the care that we provide to them. Then maybe that could be relevant. I understand that there's some of the audience are interested in organ donation and transplantation. Then maybe we can talk about that too. But more importantly, I'm a proud Latino, Hispano, or Latinx, now they're calling them, doesn't matter, but a very proud Latino. Uh,
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you. And then Alexandra.
Next time.
so, con sabor.
So thank you for the invitation. My name is Alexandra Alzate. That's a very Colombian last name, by the way. I was born and raised in Barranquilla, Colombia, but I've been living for some time already in the United States and priorly in Miami, Florida. So many years ago, I started working for University of Miami, but a few years ago, about almost 5 years ago, I started working for Life Alliance, which is the organ procurement agency down in South Florida, and they are under the administration of University of Miami. It's a wonderful job that I'm happy I was able to be part of, and it's like we all do a little something to make something that's bigger than all of us, and the end goal is to be able to provide life-saving organs for those patients on the waiting list. And even though I'm not a nurse or a surgeon, or I'm not directly involved into the clinical process, I'm extremely happy that I'm able to put my 2 cents into the whole big process.
Yes, and you're making your difference as well every day. Thank you so much. Well, again, I really appreciate all of you for sharing your time this afternoon. I know time is valuable, and I know the audience will really appreciate the opportunity to hear from you and your perspectives today. So thank you so much again. That being said, I do want to know, how do I say welcome or hello in Spanish? I'm assuming you in Colombia you speak Spanish. Is that correct?
Yes.
So how do I say welcome in Spanish?
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos. Is that right? Did I say that right? Okay. All right. So let's start with a little bit of appropriate terminology. We talked already a little bit about it's Colombian, not Colombian. So 2 O's, not 1 O and 1 U. What is an appropriate way of referencing people from Colombia? Is Colombians the correct terminology, or? That is the correct term. Okay. Is there any inappropriate way that people reference Colombians that we shouldn't be using?
I would like to say, considering I have this jersey on, when we're talking about soccer, for example, we talk about Colombians being referred to as cafeteros, for example. And that's because we are like I think the 4th largest producer of coffee in the world. Mm-hmm. So we're considered cafeteros. Then if you want to talk about more of a slang term amongst the youth, or perhaps a friend referring to another friend, you say parcero. But that's more like a slang thing. Mm-hmm. Mostly we refer to Colombians as cafeteros or Colombians. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to chime in, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Colombians, I think, is an appropriate term. The other thing that people don't realize, Colombian is relatively a big country, mm-hmm. even though we share a culture, a language, but in different areas of the country, there's a different customs, mm-hmm. Idioms, food. We're talking about drinks. There's a different drinks, food, how we prepare. Then no, all Colombians are going to be the same. In the north, the coast, people are different than in the middle of the country, in the east, on the west, or in the south. Then there's differences. But all of us we identify ourselves as a Colombians.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Caicedo, because that's exactly why I have a panel and not just one person, because it just depends. Again, one, the area you grew up in, and some of you may have grown up here in the US as well, which again will change your own personal culture. But then we personally also have our own values. And so it's influenced externally and internally. And I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because that's such an important point to remember. You cannot assume that everybody's going to share the same opinion, which is why we have to ask questions of each individual person to learn from them. And so are Colombians considered, do you consider yourself Latinos and Hispanic, or no? You do? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
So-
go ahead.
We are both because we are located in Latin America, and then our language is Spanish, so we can be called Hispanic or Latin.
Mhm.
So a little bit of a, I don't want to get too much into history, but a little bit of a history lesson. So long time ago, Colombia was called not Colombia, but Gran Colombia, which was composed of Panama, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Colombia. Although Panama doesn't have the same color flag, like the Ecuadorians and the Venezuelans, they have the same color as the Colombian flag. Maybe the emblem is a little different. Like the Venezuelans have like stars on it in the middle, and then the Ecuadorians have, I think, an eagle or something. But then these countries became independent of each other, and then that's why it's now called Colombia, then Venezuela, then Ecuador. But before it used to be called Gran Colombia.
Interesting. Ah, see, I learned something new. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, the reason I asked that question of Latinos and Hispanic is because my husband is Brazilian, and he himself does not consider himself. Well, first of all, they don't speak Spanish in Brazil, but also, and so he's not Hispanic. But he also does not consider himself Latino. He considers himself South American or Brazilian, and so that's why I like to ask, especially people from South America sometimes have a different feeling about those terms. So, all right, very good. So my next question for you is, do you believe that amongst Colombians, there are commonly shared values? Dr. Caicedo, you said you have different areas, people live in different areas and have different shared values, customs, beliefs, and practices. But overall, do you think in general there are some shared values, customs, beliefs, practices amongst Colombians, whether they're raised in Colombia or here?
I think so. I think so. Again, we identify ourselves with our country, even though we recognize difference and depends on the region, but we share the same language. We share most of the time the same religion. Most of our population are Catholic. Um, then we share all these things, and this area of Latin America, beside Brazil, that was colonized by Portugal, um, for us was Spain. And then all of us, we have kind of the same thing. And of course, we have some Native Americans in Colombia, and sometimes there's some influence, but most of us, the influence is more from Spain. And then that's why we have the same language and culture and religion. And, then I think we identify like a one.
I agree. I think that in general, Colombians are very happy people, no matter what region or part of Colombia you're in. You know, there's going to be dancing, drinking, family, and a good time. And I've traveled throughout different parts, and that's what I have experienced in all parts of Colombia. So I think if anything, like Dr. Calcedo said, we might have different accents depending on what part of Colombia you're from, but we're all going to have a good time, and we all get along, and we all relatively get along and feel the same towards each other.
That I can attest to that. Every time I've been to Sandra's house, it's music, it's dance, it's drink, and it's a happy time. Good food too.
Yeah.
Actually, that is essential for us. Food.
food.
and it is there's so diversity. There's so much different type of food. That is what makes different. When you travel in other countries, sometimes it's kind of boring. There's not so many different dishes. In Colombia, for every region, every department is over there. We call it department, here is a state, it's like a state. In every state, you have different food, and it's delicious and it's fresh. It's yeah, full of flavor. That is fantastic. Plus the drinks and the juices. We have a lot of fruits, and then we blend it with water or with milk, and it's just fantastic. And the fresh fruit. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find all these. And every time that I find a pitaya, oh, I get so
Mm.
excited. My guanawana is so beautiful. I don't know how it's called. What? No, guanawana in English. I don't know what is the term of guanawana in English. Oh, it's
I,
fantastic. And juice, oh,
It's
with
the
milk,
same.
something else.
What's the fruit?
Guanawana
What does it look like?
is green, but inside is white. And there's a big seeds
Oh,
of the
okay. I
fruit.
Yes, I know what you mean, and I forget what the English word is for it. I only know the Indonesian word for it because that's that's where I grew up. But I know exactly it's a thin green kind of skin, right?
Oh no, that is la guama. That's
Oh,
different.
that's
This is
different.
thick green and inside big seeds, and the meat is kind of white. No,
Uh,
the guanábana is like a papaya. Have you seen a papaya?
yes. Hmm.
Oh, it's like a papaya but green, but inside is white. Ah, it's delicious. Then
I
we have
love
the
that.
salpicón. We combine all these fruits in one drink. Ah, it's
yeah.
another thing. Then I think that is what joined us, right? If we're from, doesn't matter that is from Barranquilla or Santander or Nariño or Cafetero. We have so much food that we always dream in our food and say, oh my God, I want to
Clearly,
have something.
all Sandra had to say was food, and Dr. Caicedo took off.
Yeah, yeah,
The paradise in food. Well, I have my bias, right? But it's the paradise. But in Brazil too, to eat in Brazil is fantastic. In Argentina, all Latin America has a fantastic food. Sometimes people don't know so much about the food that we have. Peru, they have fantastic
yeah.
cuisine, right? It's like a Europe. You have different countries and you have very distinct food than
Yeah.
in different countries. For us, I don't remember how many states, department we have in Colombia, 27 or something. I don't remember. Don't quote that one. But in every department or state, you have something special.
Mhm.
In the jungle, oh my God, the best fish that I have had in my life was in Baupés, in Mitu, pescado moqueado. When they put they cook inside of the air, they put fire on top and they cook it there. Oh my God, it's
That
something.
sounds amazing.
In every we can talk about food the whole day. Looks like I love food, right? Okay, that's not
Maybe
good.
we'll start a cooking show. And Sandro and Alex, would you like to add anything else in terms of shared customs, values, beliefs, and practices that you've identified, or do you kind of agree with what has been said so far?
Yes, so again, food is important and we don't participate much on fast food. For us, it's an event and we get together, the whole family, and it happens multiple times a day, perhaps lunch and dinner, or maybe breakfast before everybody leaves the house, everybody gets together. Coffee, it's the
It's a
every
must.
day. Since you don't have to be an adult to drink coffee. It is very usual for since you're young to drink coffee. It is something very cultural over there. So yeah, food always is extremely important. It's something that unites the family. We are extremely family oriented. I think Colombians are always living around family, and my family is an example. We live here in Miami, and my mother lives and her sister lives not even a mile away from her. They have houses and they all live in the same neighborhood, and we try to get together at least every weekend and share spend time. Um, religion is something also that we share. And growing up, I had the opportunity of going to a Presbyterian school, which is it's kind of weird. And I happen to go with many different religions because happens that about 98% of Colombia is Catholic.
Mm.
So we only have this one school in which kids that were not Catholic will go. And then this is why I had the opportunity to grow up with Jehovah Witnesses, Seventh Day Adventists, and many other religions. I had, I kind of had that opportunity to be in touch with that. But yes, I want to say that about 98% of Colombia is Catholic, and this is something that we very strongly share. And
Mhm.
Semana Santa, it's something in which nobody works, and it's pretty much a week dedicated to Christ and all those religious things that the church does. So those are things that I think just across the country, regardless or the city or the food that we eat, those are things that we all share when we are Colombians.
So food, community, celebration,
Religion.
dance, music, and religion are very integral parts, in general, you would say, amongst the Colombian culture. Now, other ways in which you think other people might misunderstand Colombians, or do you feel Colombians are misunderstood in certain ways by other people?
I just
Um,
want to, please, Sandra.
oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Caicedo. I would say, well, for me, growing up in Miami, all my life, one of the things that was a little offensive, unfortunately, was being addressed as a drug trafficker or a narcotraficante. You know, Colombia was plagued with Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel for many years. Thank God that those groups have been dismantled. However, there's other guerrilla groups like Les FARC that has taken over the business and stuff like that. So I would say that that's my personal experience. It was that being called a cartel member, and that's totally not true. We're known for so many other beautiful things. Colombia has so much resources and beautiful things to offer. That
I,
yeah,
I
I don't
I
know.
just I just want to emphasize that point, and actually, I was going in there because unfortunately, media in general, in U.S., in our countries, in Europe, all over, I have to criticize them deeply. Media focus only in negative aspect or whatever.
Yeah.
They are not showing something positive, and they create stereotypes, and then people will assume. In Colombia, we're hearing also all the bombs that were happening in the Middle East. Then we say, "Oh, we won't go there." But you talk to Jewish people, people from Israel, say, Israel is the safest place on earth. Say, my God, but we're seeing all the bombs that is happening. The same, right? When here in the media are talking, and the media has a huge influence, but has a very negative influence because they are very negative. Then when people only listen and look at, and we're not going to talk about politics because I get even excited, even.
Right.
But look at what is happening in this country. This is the best country on earth based on diversity. When countries are diverse, when the company is diverse, they are the most successful. When we start not acknowledging the diversity, and 99% of the population in this country has immigrated in some point. Only
Mhm.
1% of the population is Native Americans, and is the best country for that reason. But when we forget the diversity, and I will stop my political comments there, it is a mistake. And
Yeah.
when the media is just focusing in the negative, oh, the Colombians are drug dealers. That
Hmm.
is false. And you can categorize or stereotype people by the less than 1% of the population. That doesn't reflect who you are or what are your values.
Mhm.
Then I think when in this type of media or any type of media, and always I'm trying to join any type of media that is positive and talking well about different people. Colombian are very nice people with good heart, with good intention. Even under adversity, always we're happy, smiling, and looking for solution. That is what we are. We are not drug dealers. When I arrived here to US and I will start giving talks, even in my own hospital, I always have to include, well, Colombia with all, and I'm Colombian and start looking, showing Caño Cristales, the most beautiful river in the world. Then I started showing what was Colombia about to educate people here because they have the wrong idea.
Yeah.
The same happened with Colombians or people from any country because the media has sell a wrong idea. Then there's a critique and also just to clean our name. We're good people. We are not that. And when people here, they were showing the Escobar show and people were
Hmm.
talking about, oh, Escobar said, for God's sake, these people killed so many. I was a resident in Colombia. I took care of people when they were bombing and we received 200 patients at the same time.
Mm.
That was not a joke. Then when they see this as a show, they say, for God's sake, no. And when people use drug here in US, I'm against. And that is insane. When people use the drug and blame the one that produces it. If somebody consume it, somebody's going to produce it. Doesn't matter what is the country. Bottom line, I completely agree with Sandro. That is the only thing that sometimes I have to fight very hard with a lot of passion. That's another thing that identifies Latinos and Colombians. We're passionate.
Yes.
Whatever we do is with a lot of passion. And then that is not us. And
Yeah.
the guerrillas or the drug leaders that no identify us. We usually don't consume drugs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with Sandra in that one, 150%.
And I think what you said, the media is such a big culprit. And because the only time we ever hear something about another country is when something bad is being portrayed. And so you get this impression it's so dangerous to travel the world and don't go anywhere. And people develop, like you said, because they don't think to ask, they don't think to realize that that is one story you're hearing out of the exception. It's the exception, not the rule. And consequently, we become anxious for absolutely no good reason and stereotype people. And it's just such a sad thing, which is partly why I'm doing these live streams, because cultural intelligence can only develop if we appreciate our cultural differences, our different ways of looking at things, and utilize that for better advantage. Like you said, if you are more diverse in your abilities and your culture and your perspectives, it ends up lending for much better outcomes and much more success than when we're just being one-minded, right?
Right.
If I
So,
can say, now being American, I'm very proud American and
mhm.
being very proud Colombian. But I think we have to teach this country. This is the best country on earth. But there's a segment of the population that don't realize, and just the media is selling the idea that everything is American centric. When they say the world championship in baseball, when it's football, they feel like it's the world. Said no, for God's sake, the world is huge.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have a very narrow mind and eye.
Mm-hmm.
Then we should open our hearts, our minds to recognize the rest that
Mm-hmm.
is around us. And that will make us even stronger. But in many situations, people were saying, yes, American, American, America, America, but don't recognize that everybody has come from, I mean, everybody wants to come to America for a reason. And we shouldn't lose the main reason why people, all of us, we came to this country,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Excellent.
sometimes people forget that.
Yeah. Excellent point. Now, what is something that you wish others would know or understand about Colombian people?
I have talked a lot. Then Alexandra.
Alexandra, yeah.
I would like to say that, I'm sorry, Alejandra,
No, 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 go ahead.
that, Colombians are very family centric. Family is very important. I think that Colombians have big hearts. I've been to many parts of it and I've experienced it. I have felt it. if you're there and you're visiting someone, there's going to be food made available. They don't think like we do here about, oh my goodness, I have to run to the store and buy all this. They find a way to suddenly make the sancocho, enough sancocho for eight, when they were like thinking of maybe making it for four. Everything is just abundant, and the abundance is spread. The love is spread. The food is spread. It's just it's also a very beautiful country. I want to say that it has mountains, it has ocean, it has so many different aspects that not all countries have. So I think that depending on the region, you're always going to feel warmth. You're always going to feel that comfort from that different region that you're in, and you're going to feel, I think, very good. I feel that people are starting to travel a little bit more to Colombia. I hear more about friends who say, "Oh, I'm going to Cartagena, Bogota," a little bit more of the popular ones, cities. But I get very excited when I hear that, and I hope it's something that continues. I know we're in a little bit of turmoil right now in Colombia, but I hope that changes quickly. But really, I just think the warmth, the love, the people, and the country itself is beautiful. Alejandra, I'll turn it over to you.
So yes, Colombia is definitely a beautiful country, and you can find everything, all kinds of weather, landscaping. It's also beautiful, flowers, you name it. But I always want to tell people that one of the most beautiful things Colombia has to offer to the world is its people. And if you ever have the opportunity to go to Colombia, they will treat you like family, even though this might be the first time they're getting to know you. People will literally go out of their way to help you, to try to accommodate anything that you need. It's incredible. A few years ago, for the first time, I went to the city of Medellin. I fell in love with it, and the city is beautiful, but the people, they were definitely amazing. Also, when I've taken friends to Barranquilla to visit my family, it's like first time they're seeing them, but it's like their family as well. And this is one of the things that I think it's bringing more people back to Colombia as tourists, because the service, and also every time that I hear people from other countries, oh, that they have gotten the opportunity to be in contact with other Colombians, that's when they really say, you know what, I had a different idea of Colombian people, but now that I work with some Colombians, or that I went to school with some Colombians, or that my neighbors are Colombian, I get to know and to see how nice and how good of people Colombians are. So that's also, it's beautiful people. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people as well.
That's been my experience with all of the Colombians I've had the opportunity to meet over my life, and friends I made. And actually, in fact, my uncle's partner for many, many years is a lady from Colombia who he met online, and she now lives in England with him. And so we have Colombian in our family too. But I had the opportunity to fly through Colombia on my way to Brazil. Sometimes, different airlines go different routes, and this time it happened to be going through Bogota. And as I flew through, I was just thinking, wow, this looks so beautiful. I would love to come back someday and really get to visit it, not just fly through, but visit it. But even the town Bogota looked amazing from the plane. It was really cool. Actually looked like I thought I saw a lot of European influence in the architecture. Am I perceiving that correctly?
Yes.
And that is true. And another beautiful thing, just to contrast culture.
Mm-hmm.
Here in America, somebody invite you a party, and the party is between 6 to 9. And at 9 p.m. they say, I will let you go. I was shocked when the first time that I experienced this. In Colombia, you invite somebody to your home, and actually you get offended if they leave too early. Said, what happened? The food was no good, the drink was no good, the music was no good. What I did wrong, right? Actually, the best party is the one that end up the next day after breakfast, right? the traditional way to party. It's the whole night, and the next day we end
Yeah.
up with a strong breakfast. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, people have been drinking for the whole night, and right around, I want to say 3 a.m. in the morning, they will serve sancocho. So you get like, you get like a little bit more alert again, and then you keep partying till, perhaps 5, 7 in the morning. But yeah, it's a tradition, sancocho in the middle of the night.
What
Yeah.
is san? You said sancocho,
Yes.
coach.
and what is it?
Well, it's a very strong soup, and
Oh,
kind of
soup.
like a full meal, but it's a soup.
Yeah, it's a soup with a lot of carbohydrates. It has papa, potatoes, yuca. I
Oh, I
think
love yuca.
yuca, translation for yuca,
Yeah.
plantains, green plantain,
Ah,
and then you blend all these things, and then you can put it chicken, or you can put pork, or you can put beef, or you can put all of them. That is the best. And then you serve that with rice, with some
mhm.
avocados, and that's great. But
And
the
arepa.
and the
Arepas, yes.
then, but the beauty of the how smart is our culture in some fashion. When you're drinking, you're losing electrolytes, right? That is kind of the explanation about the guayao. The
Hmm.
guayao, how you say in English?
Hangover.
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 The hangover is because you're losing electrolytes, right? Sodium and all the electrolytes, and you're paying more because the effect of alcohol. If you start eating something that is salty, then you're not going to have a hangover, or guayabo is the way that we call it, right? And then you drink, and the other beautiful thing, why we feel good the next day, we're dancing all night long. Then we're sweating, and then we're losing the alcohol, sweating. Then we're drinking, yes, we're dancing, and then we're eating. And then the next day, okay, you're tired, but you feel good. And then not so much hangover.
They have
Perfect.
they have this other dish also. It's called calentado, which is basically the leftovers of the day
Oh.
before. Right, Dr. Caicedo looks like he's well acquainted with with the dish, which is usually like a rice, beans, egg, a fried egg, steak, and maybe I don't know, una salchicha or something, a chorizo is what we call it, and they mix it all together, and then the next day, tremenda bomba, like a bomb. But it just hits the spot.
You can be dead, and after eating that thing, you're
You're back
alive.
alive.
And then you combine with another drink that we didn't talk about before. That is, we produce coffee. Yes, we drink a lot of coffee, but the other one, there's a strong Colombia, is chocolate.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
with
now you're
cheese.
speaking my language.
And then and it's different that the very sweet chocolate that is here in America. Our chocolate is different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that is great. Or
Yes.
agua panela con leche with milk. Oh my God! You put it.
This is awesome. It sounds fabulous. And it's interesting that dish that you said, Sandro, that is like your leftover dish. That seems to be not an uncommon thing in a lot of countries. Like fried rice, it's technically a leftover dish traditionally. Chop suey in China literally means leftovers. And you
I
can
didn't
order
know
it in a restaurant on the menu.
I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And I
see,
want to
shepherd's pie in
mention
England.
one thing, and it's closer to the region where Alejandra's from. When you go to Cartagena, you go and you party in a bus called the Chiva. And in the Chiva, on the last row, you have the band. And in the front, in the middle, you have the people, and there's dancing and there's music going. And then right around midnight, you stop someplace and you end up having an arepa with a huevo inside. And
Arepa huevo.
that's more like a costeños,
Yes.
right? Do
Yes.
that a little bit more, but it is amazing. And it's interesting that my children got to go to Colombia, and that was the one thing that when they came back home, they kept talking about is how good that arepa was in the middle of the night with the huevo inside. So it's a very big thing to go out and party in the chiva and then do that at the middle of the night.
And Alexandra is the expert, and I will leave her
Yes,
to talk more. But it's arepa de huevo, carimañolas, las butifarras. Oh,
yes.
no me digas.
Oh, depending on the area of Colombia, we also have different foods. And because I think I'm in this panel, I'm the only person from the coast. We are very close to the coast, so we are have a lot of seafood in our, our food, and we have a lot of things that we do with coconut. So we do coconut soup, we do coconut rice, which
Right.
is delicious, and then we also do different things that are, I want to say they're kind of pastries. And there goes arepa de huevo, caribañola, which is made out of yuca, and it's like a papa rellena, but it's made of yuca. And then there's so many other things that, depending from the area that you are from or that you live in, the food will change.
Mhm. Very good. Well, now you're making me hungry.
Ooh,
I love
we need a
coconut.
caipirinha here for everyone, and food. There's
Yeah.
another. I grew up in Los Llanos Orientales. Imagine that you're in La Pampa in Argentina or in Brazil, where you create all the churrasquerias and everything.
Mhm.
In Los Llanos Orientales, they made carne a la llanera.
Oh
It's
my God, yes.
basically a beef from a very young cow,
Oh.
and they put it in these sticks, and they cook it with fire.
Hmm.
Oh,
Wow.
it's the most delicious thing. Oh my gosh, it's juicy, tender, and then we do the guacamole with yuca and potato. Oh my, and good
Amazing.
aguardiente or good beer. My God, you know what? I'm so hungry. We need to find urgently a Colombian restaurant.
I think we need to switch subjects before our stomachs all start growling.
I am.
So, are there certain health or healthcare beliefs that are commonly shared amongst Colombians?
Well, I would say so in Colombia, and I'm sure Dr. Caicedo can attest to this since you were a resident in Colombia and now you practice here in America. In Colombia, the people seem to have a strong affinity towards physicians. And over there, there's the physician and then the nurse, opposed to the United States, where we have physician assistants, we have nurse practitioners, allied health professionals, etc. Over there, they tend to respect more the physician. And so basically, whatever the physician says, that must be what's right. Here, you can go to a physician assistant for a cold or whatever, and the person will respect that person's decision to prescribe whatever medication and feel confident that it's going to work. Over there, it's not so much common. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to chime in, but I have never heard of a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner or anything like that over there.
I think Sandra is absolutely right. And one of the things when we're creating the Hispanic program, where we're trying to personalize the care of Hispanics, one of the reasons why we have been successful is because we recognize that cultural fact. For the Hispanic community, and well, now we're talking about Colombia, for the Hispanics, they really respect two people, or they have an authoritative figure in the Hispanic community. Is the priest, because we're very religious. If the padrecito, el sacerdote, the priest says something, you just obey, right? But the second one is the physician. Traditionally, there was a family doctor, and this family doctor knew the whole family. They knew everything, and he will coordinate the care of anything that happened. And in Spanish, always I used to mention, I ask in America, what means MD? In Spanish, MD means medio Dios. Translated to English is half God.
Wow.
They really respect the physician.
Yeah.
The problem in America, physicians feel like, oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time to spend too much with the patient. Let somebody else go and talk to them. Actually, the opposite for us, and that's the problem. All the education that people are given to the Hispanic community, or in general, physicians don't talk too much to the patient. And actually, that is something that we change here. All our clinics are in Spanish. Now I start by myself, and now I have 50 people with us um, that are bilingual, bicultural. Um, then we're taking care of them. Then I think that is important. People really respect the physician, wants to hear the information from the physician, and is more likely that they're going to move forward with whatever is the recommendation. And that is one comment for the physicians in America. We have to go back. And also the other thing everybody has mentioned before, we're very family oriented. Then when the physician is just talking to the patient and doesn't involve the family, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Then in my clinics, I invite everyone, the patient, the elders, because they are the decision maker in the family, the grandma, la abuelita, she's the one that decides. Many times when you're talking about life or death situation, when I'm getting married, then I want to talk grandma. If I'm dying, I want to talk grandma or my elder. The same the Asian community.
Mhm.
We're not going to ask grandma what is the tablet or cellular phone that I want to buy, but I'm dying, I'm getting married, yes. Then you have to involve the family. Then you have to invite everyone in the family, the elders, the cat, the dog, and the gossiper in the neighborhood. You educate all of them, and now you have the best outcome. And then when people say, oh, Hispanic, they don't follow recommendation, that is because you have a poor communication with this community. You don't recognize the difference in culture. As soon as you involve the whole family, everything is possible. I can tell you, Hispanics and Colombians and Hispanics here in Chicago, they have the highest living donation rate that compared to any other ethnicities. This is something that we demonstrate in my hospital. Above whites, above Asians, above Afro Americans. But again, it's just going to the basics. As Sandra and Alexandra were mentioning, we're very family oriented, and you have to involve them, and then everything is possible.
That's an excellent point. And I'm glad you brought up the cultural decision makers. So grandma is the boss in these big decisions. Is that pretty typical for the Colombian culture?
Yes, always.
Yeah. And so now you mentioned the priest as well. Let's say you said it's really important to involve the whole family, whomever they want involved in the conversation, and build trust with them, involve them in this conversation in a healthcare setting. You know, to what extent might the priest be influencing the family outside of the conversation that you're having with the family?
For what I do, transplants, I do a lot of living donor, kidneys, livers. I don't involve the priest at that point. I involve the whole family, and I bring the grandma, whoever it is. I really want to talk with them. They need to understand, and I involve religion in my talks. You know, John Paul II, that was a very charismatic pope in the Catholic Church. He used to say something like this, like the biggest act of love was to donate an organ. When grandma listened to that, say, oh my God, really? Is good? And God is in favor of this? When I mentioned that most of the religions are in favor of donation, they say, grandma say, I want to be a donor. And then not necessarily the goal is to have grandma as a donor, although they have donated uh, organs, but it's just to have the blessing from grandma to allow the others to donate.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, I think just to recognize the central role of the family is really, really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many families don't know that a lot of religions are on board with organ donation. And this is why, for example, the organ procurement agency that I work with, the community department, they spend resources trying to do activities with the churches in the area. And me personally, I work in a big trauma hospital, and I like to every now and then sit with the spiritual leadership to make sure that we explain the the process of organ donation and the benefits of organ donation. And that way, when we have a family in the hospital that they need spiritual guidance and they call someone, this person has the information, the education, and it's, when they look at them and ask them, is it okay for us to donate? And that person, either the priest or whatever leader they have, it says, yes, it's okay. They feel that comfort and it will be a lot easier for that family to move forward with the decision.
Yeah.
I think after, for when we're talking about disease donation, then the priest is very important.
Mhm.
At that point, I work with the OPO here in my region, Give Her Hope. I'm part of the board, I'm a board member. And then one of the things that we have worked is with the priests because they have a strong voice in the community.
Right.
We have been able to increase disease donation from Hispanics when we are targeting and we're working with the priests. Because then if the priest is talking about the benefit of donation or why the religion is in favor, how Pope Francis is in favor, then the community listen and they will say, you know what, let's do it. And
Mhm.
donation also is a healer. I mean, if you have lost your loved one, you are so sad.
Mhm.
But when you know that your loved one is living in somebody else, we can donate so many organs, more than 35 or 50 between organs and tissues, depending on what you're recovering. Then when people understand that the loved one has saved so many lives, that make heal easier. That
Mhm.
doesn't remove the pain and the
Right.
suffering that they have at that point, but help them to heal. Then
Mhm.
also there is a secondary benefit of disease donation or donation after somebody dies for this family. Again, then just to conclude the idea, then the priests are very important just to help the community to move forward. If the community understand that our religion, Catholic Church, and most of the religion is people from other religions, is in favor of donation. That is very important for the community to hear.
That's beautiful. A little bit of a sidetrack question here, but let's say a family is going through a crisis in the hospital, and the priest comes in and has a different perspective than you do as a physician. Um, how do you kind of reconcile that? Have you ever had that incident, or does the priest equally respect your opinion then and side with you, or how does that usually work?
Then basically the priests, based on their knowledge or the background, they are
Mhm.
receptive. And if I start talking to them, so let me clarify one thing. Nobody is expert in everything.
Right.
I can talk about politics or other topics because it's not my strength or my expertise. They know, but they don't know everything, the priests.
Mhm.
And sometimes they don't know so much about organ donation. Then you have to educate the priests too.
Mhm.
But if we start talking to the priests that John Paul II was in favor of donation, they say, oh, okay. And the Pope Francis in favor, okay. Most of the religions are in favor, say, okay. And then you can win them over,
Mm.
right? Then it's a process. Again, education is so important, it's all levels. Politicians, they don't know, then we have to educate the politicians, the
Mhm.
community leaders, the priests, the physicians. There is a lot of physicians, they don't know the advantage of the organ donation in the ICUs and the EDs, and then we have to educate them. They have different perceptions, they have biases. Everyone has different biases. Then we have to deal with those. But again, if we present the data, we present the evidence, we present the right message, usually people move forward.
Yeah. And so you talked about donation. Are there commonly held beliefs about death in itself? And is there anything that can provide meaning in death to Colombian people?
You guys want to start? Chandra and Alexander?
Well, what I can probably say about death, like you guys have mentioned, Colombia or Colombians are very religious, and even though some Colombians may be pro donation, there are others who believe, okay, if God brought me into this earth with all of my faculties, I should be able to get buried and go back with all my faculties. So it depends, but what they don't realize is that there's a miracle in being able to donate and give the gift of life as well. So I would that's what I would say about that.
So yeah, because they're very religious and they believe. Someone told me one time, but no, you can't donate the heart. You need the heart because you're gonna resurrect. So those
Oh,
are certain beliefs, and I, of course, is very religious, and also, and I see it from my family, in which I'm always mentioning, cremation, it's the way to go, and they're like, no, you can't do that. You need to bury the body, and then you need to go um, visit and take flowers and do all these things that nowadays people really don't do and don't have time for. But it's the belief they have it, and it's how they want things to be done. And yeah, in that sense, that might be something that have a family, perhaps walking away from the option of donation because of um, they're so attached to those religious beliefs and that misconception in a way that things that they've been taught for years, and it's hard to detach from that to now. It's like when you work doing this, or when you're a little more exposed to organ donation, when you actually realize the benefits of it, and that in fact you are being a more Christian person by donating your organs and giving life to other people. But it is hard to walk away from those beliefs, and I think that's where Colombians are in many cases.
Mhm.
100% agree. But here's where, just to emphasize, this is the biggest act of love, is to give yourself after you die or alive. Give yourself to save another life. There's nothing bigger than this. You can give 1 peso, is the currency in Colombia. That's very little, right? Or 1 million pesos. That doesn't mean nothing. If you give yourself a piece of a kidney or piece of your liver to save a life, this is bigger. There's priceless. And also, probably you have heard this, that God knows that we need the organs here on earth, not in heaven.
yeah.
And here's where we can save lives. He doesn't need it there. We
Mhm.
need it here. And again, then I use a lot of religion. There's a lot of resistance from patients too to accept organs, especially from living donors. They say, I don't want to use an organ from my loved one. And that's normal. 80% of patients would think the same. And before somebody can donate an organ, a lot of things to happen. A lot of things to be aligned for that person to donate. We rule out it for liver transplantation. We rule out 60 to 80% of donors. Then it's not like every donor is going to be approved.
All right.
And if everything is fine, if there's no medical, surgical, psychosocial contraindication, it's just
Mhm.
because God wanted, right? It's very hard to align everything. And
Match.
then
Yeah.
people start realizing and say, okay, I will take it. And it's out a lack of love. Um, then people start changing. But it certainly is a very cultural thing, and we have to
Mhm.
deal with it.
I want to add one thing that everyone mentioned a lot of what I was thinking. The one thing that I want to add is that there's a lot of burial. There's a lot of, under the ground, and there's a lot of open casket. And the Colombian people are very beautiful people, and for them, aesthetics is very important.
Yeah.
So I think it's also there needs to be communication about the fact that even though you donate your organs, you could still have an open casket. The body can be, if you're doing donation after death, then you could still make that person look good enough so that no one, you could make it so that no one would even know that person became an organ donor. So I think that's an important fact to make. I grew up all my life. Whenever I had to go to a burial, there was an open casket. I think it's, not my favorite thing, but it's what I grew up with. Not what I want for myself, but something that we definitely experienced. So
Mhm.
I think that's something else to think about, and something to stress
Mhm.
to families.
Now, are there certain principles I should be aware of when I'm interacting with Colombian people, like do's and don'ts?
From my personal experience, I can say so. We mentioned a lot about religion, and we've talked about food.
Mhm.
So there's always cafecito in like Colombian homes,
Mm.
pastries and all types of stuff, right? So uh, I would say a big no-no is if you come to somebody's house, a Colombian person's house, and they offer you something, and for you not to take it, and not
Mm.
even, I don't know, some coffee, something, it could be misperceived as being rude or offensive. I'll share an example. So I was dating somebody a couple years ago, and I told this person, "Hey, we're gonna go visit my mom." My mom was living 2 hours away from me. I was living in Miami. She was living 2 hours away from me. And don't eat anything. You're gonna meet my mom for the first time, and it was my birthday. So my mom took a long time making me this cake. The ron con pasas. I guess it's raisins and rum. It's a very
Mm.
it's very common in Bogota. So went over there. She meets the girl, and my mom's like, "Look, I made you this cake." And the girl's like, "No, I'm not hungry." And I'm like,
Oh no.
goodness gracious, not the first date or not the first time.
Okay.
She goes to the girl excuses herself, goes to the bathroom, and my mom says, "Ah, no, esa muchachita usted no me la va a traer más," which means you're not bringing that girl over here anymore. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing." That's the first thing I told her. Is the first thing she did. I told her, "Just have a little piece." No, nah, nothing. So,
She's
and,
fired.
right, yeah, she got she got fired. I was trying to hire. So, essentially, I would say, and I'm not sure if anybody else from the panel wants to chime in. A big no-no is to not at least accept a piece of candy, something from somebody who's offering you something with so much love.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so
Yeah, because in some cultures, the polite thing is to refuse, and refuse a few times, and it's like a game.
uh-huh.
You refuse three times, and then on the third time you'll accept, and it's kind of the polite thing to do. And so that's where you can easily have a misunderstanding. So it's good to know that. So even if, say, it was a patient or patient's family coming to the hospital bringing you something, not to decline it, but to accept it. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least accept it. At least.
Accepted. And going even further is for some people but in different countries is good manner to leave food on the plate, right?
Mm.
But for us, if you prepare something fantastic, right, and you leave something in your plate, is you don't like it, you didn't like it, and then you feel bad. Then actually it's very polite and will be very appreciated if you clean the plate and you
Yeah.
said, "Can I have a little more?"
Can I take
Then
home?
ma will be, if that girl go there, take the piece and say, "Can I have another one?" She will be your wife.
Exactly.
And she said, "No," and she stopped. And now it's very hard to win mother. And mothers are very influential,
Yes.
and especially with the boys.
Yes.
If mom said, "This is no good for my little boy," he's gone
Yep.
in
Yes, sir.
our culture. Then this girl didn't play the cards well.
No. 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 And I
No,
warned her.
Sandra and Alexandra and mixing and making it up was true.
Yeah, it's
True.
true.
It's true. You
True.
have to win mama first.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, are there any like body language do's and don'ts that I need to be aware? And also, you talked about the cultural decision maker, the grandma kind of being the boss. There's certain things when I'm interacting, let's say, with a patient or the patient's family, or with a Colombian that I meet out, in the community. There's certain things that I should be aware of.
Personal space, I think, and this is pretty much for all Latin or Hispanic cultures. People are not so aware of personal space. So it might be okay for somebody to get a little too close to you or to give you a kiss on the cheek if they're meeting you for the first time. Instead of a handshake, it could be a little bit, a little hug and a kiss on the cheek. It's the way we say hello. It's not inappropriate. It goes with our culture. So yeah, sometimes people might feel like, oh, you are
Invading.
invading my personal space, but no, not so much for Colombians. We kind of like to get together, and that's okay. We like to get close to each other, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And for patient, actually, they value a lot that.
Mhm.
When a patient, a physician-patient interaction or encounter is very far away, that encounter doesn't go
Mm.
far. But if you shake hands or a little hug or something, patient feel like that doctor is so nice. I want to come back again, and they bring the rest of the family. Then actually is very very important to be close, and in general, Hispanics appreciate that. Not the be so cold. They like to be close. And then that's why Latins we're very touchy. I mean, we're not trying to. No, it's our culture, and
Yeah,
it's fine as long as it's respectful, right?
of course. Of course.
I want I want to add too. I think Colombians are very proper. A lot of times you use the word señor, señora. At least for me growing up in our house, if there was someone who was older, you always had to say, Señora Haiti, Señora Alejandra, Señor Sandro. It's very important to be respectful. And when I was in Colombia, I remember going with someone to the bank, and this is a professional individual that I was with. And when he walked into the bank, everyone knew his name. And I was so impressed by that because here that doesn't happen. Over there, people know you by your name and they will address you señor, Alejandro, whatever your name is. It's very common. And so for me, that really stood out as something, especially in Colombia. I've traveled to many different Latin countries. I think it's a little bit more prominent there compared to other countries.
Definitely, even the way children address their parents. I remember
Yeah.
my mother calling my name and me saying, what not, ma'am. You have to call your mother ma'am. It's you
Yeah.
can't be what? No.
Yeah.
What do you want? No. It's
Yeah.
we have to, even if it's your mother, but you have to address them properly.
Yeah.
Mhm. And do you typically address people by their last name or their first name? Like, for example, as a healthcare professional with patients and their families, would you start with the last name, Mr., Miss, Mrs., or would using the first name be okay?
Me personally, when I address, well, in Colombia, especially my elders, I use don or doña, like Mr. or Mrs. And then
Mhm.
I go by the first name,
Yeah.
right? So I could say like, well, Alejandra is not, or Alexandra is not like too much older than me, but let's just say she's, I don't know, 60 or something. I'll be like Doña Alejandra or whatever, you
Okay.
know. I wouldn't really
Mhm.
say Doña Alzate. I'll say Doña Alejandra.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Caicedo, I will always address him as Dr. Caicedo or Señor Caicedo.
Mhm.
So
Excellent. So I realize the time, and Dr. Caicedo, if I know you are being called. So I have one last question, and maybe we can start with you. And if you need to jump off, I totally respect that. My question is, tell me one thing that you love about the Colombian commonly shared culture.
What I love is just being Colombian. Colombia means what we talk. It's our people, it's our food, it's our religion, how close we are from one with other. In every region, there's a different carnivals. We have the one in Barranquilla. We go in Los Llanos Orientales. We have different one. If we go to Nariño, we have the white and black carnival. In every religion, in every region, there's different one. It's just the culture. It's just one, and we're happy and we enjoy life. We want always the best for us and for whoever is in front of us and for our family.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caicedo. How about you, Sandra?
Go ahead,
I
Sandra.
think the music, and just the way that people connect through the dance. And like I mentioned, the chiva and the fact that in the back row there's always a band, there's always music and liveliness, and I think that that shows in the way that the people behave, the way they treat each other. I think it kind of just is like a domino effect, but it really creates this sense of happiness and this sense of happy life, just vibrance. So for me, that's what I would choose.
Excellent. How about you, Alex?
So I am very proud of being Colombian, and that goes everything there, my culture, the fact that we're extremely family oriented, our food. And I don't know if you've Googled this, but Colombians speak the best Spanish in America. So yeah, that's something that we are very we take pride on. So extremely proud of being Colombian, and I think I was lucky that I was born in that beautiful country, surrounded by beautiful people.
Excellent. And last but not least, Sandro?
I would say that pretty much the same thing that everybody's saying. I love the food. I love the music. One of the typical.
Where's your sombrero hat?
Oh, it's right here. Nice. The fashion statement, which is called el sombrero volteado. That's what they call it over there. I love the music too. The typical music from Colombia is like cumbia, vallenato. Vallenatos basically means born in the valley or born from the valley. That's what that really means. And it's composed mostly of drums and accordions and stuff like that. I love the food and just like you guys have said, like the warmth of the people and how close we are. That's what I love the most about Colombia.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I really, really appreciate all of you making time on this Friday afternoon. And I thank you for teaching us so much about the shared Colombian culture. Now I want to go visit. I want to go to eat all the good food, drink everything you talked about. I want to try it all. So thank you everyone so much. And hopefully we can meet each other in person sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.